All right, I believe we've got a couple people on the line, hopefully many more following the AFC Championship game. Patriots defeat the Chiefs 37-31 in overtime. One of the most exciting, thrilling championship games that I've seen in a long, long life of watching the NFL. Of course, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. That's what we talk not just during college football season. If you're joining us for a rare time or for the first time, we don't talk NFL on here, but we delve into the NFL at times when it applies to college, of course, with the NFL draft and such events like that, the NFL scouting combine. But the rest of the time, we talk college football every day, even when it's not college football season. I do love the NFL, watch the NFL. I am not emotionally invested in the NFL. I have basically no emotional investment in the NFL. I appreciate it. I love watching it. I watch as much as possible, just like college football, but don't dedicate myself to it like college football with all the reading and the stats and keeping up with it every day. I just watch the games for enjoyment, just hang out with my son, watch the NFL games. But I have emotional investment in the NFL seemingly it once a year. It turns out that once a year I do have emotional investment in the NFL, and that one day is basically championship weekend in the championship game that the Patriots play. No offense to any Patriots fans out there. Please understand where this comes from. Nothing against Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, or any other long-standing member of the New England Patriots from 2001 up until now. I am just completely fatigued. I may not watch the Super Bowl, may not care to watch it, probably will catch some of it. I will be working anyway, but will not tape it and watch it again like I have past Super Bowls to make sure I don't miss a play. I'm just sick of the Patriots. It's kind of like Alabama fatigued for a lot of people. And again, all due credit to the Patriots. But I tweeted a number of times during the latter portion of this game, every time the officials did something stupid, made a bad call, as they did on the roughing the passer, on the game leading drive for the Patriots in the fourth quarter that culminated with a touchdown in which they took the lead. Let's see, it would have been 31-28. There was an awful, atrocious call by the officials in which Mississippi State's Chris Jones was not allowed to. Have we gotten to a point in regulating defensive football that we're not going to allow a defender while he's being blocked by an offensive lineman to reach over the defender and just touch the quarterback right there, roughing the passer? That was awful, awful. And then, of course, it had nothing to do with the officials per se. I would have to see the D Ford play. And I got to say, I'm not going to be too concerned that I have an opportunity to work for CBS anytime soon. But my goodness, the post-game analysis, maybe they're hitting it right now. So I will, with the sound down, I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they are actually breaking down the last few drives of the game and not just giving the standard. Brady was great. Sony Michel ran for 100 yards. They use a bunch of different receivers. Pat Mahomes, dynamic. That this is the type of game you need to diagnose, and maybe the most of the American public can't take that kind of football acumen and breakdown, but I just heard nothing post-game that made any sense or wasn't anything past the obvious. It was all pretty contrite and pretty stale and pretty obvious. And D Ford lined up offsides. I can't believe I didn't hear any mention of this after the game. D Ford, Kansas City, defensive end, Auburn graduate or player at least. Auburn product, D Ford lined up offsides in the play where Kansas City intercepted the pass of Tom Brady that ended the game or would have ended the game. That seems pretty significant to me. It was the most significant play of the game because it ended the game. And unfortunately, if anything I like to see watching football is I like to see the game decided by the players on the field. Now, if the officials have to make a call because there's a blatant hold pass interference. Of course, the officials need to regulate the game, but I hate to see it decided like that. And even more so, I hate to see it decided by penalties that had nothing to do with the play and that had nothing to do with actual football playing, like roughing the passer or a personal foul or an offsides, especially when it had nothing to do with the play. It was on the other side of the field. So I really hate to see that in watching football, because to me, that doesn't decide. I want to see the players and the teams, and the better team with the better players and the better performance win the game, not necessarily that something like that decided the game. Had that conversation a couple days ago, putting the LSU win in the Fiesta Bowl over UCF into context, talking about a play involving a Central Florida defender spiking the football and giving LSU new life, and they scored a touchdown. It was a key play when UCF's defense had gotten off the field, and I just made mention that I hate to see that. The officials need to call the rule book, but I just hate to see that when something that is not football related decides something that important during the course of the game. In this, it was football related in that it's offsides, but standing 6 inches closer to the line of scrimmage versus, and it needed to be called if he was in fact, and we didn't have a good angle on it to know that he was offsides, but I will trust the officials telling us that D Ford was offsides. And I just hate to see a Super Bowl decided, a conference championship decided on a play in which a player's shoe was that far offsides. And the interception that would have won the Kansas City Chiefs their first AFC championship since 1969. Some of us were alive, but barely in 1969, that the Kansas City Chiefs could have played in their first Super Bowl since 1970, January of 70, the 69 season. I remember it well. This is somebody who, even though you guys know me for college football, I probably know more about NFL history maybe than college football history. It's pretty close. All right, let me go to the live stream. And again, I had no intention of talking about the NFL games today, because we talk college football 24/7 at 365. So if you love the NFL, you're catching us after this game wanting some NFL coverage, I'm here to provide that for you and take some comments in the live chat. But keep in mind that if you also love college football, this is the place to be, right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Best debate, discussion, analysis of college football. You can support the channel, you old timers, by grabbing any of the links in the description section of any of the videos, using those links to do your Amazon shopping. That supports Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You don't need to buy the product on Amazon. You just need to do your regular shopping on Amazon. Use the links in the description section of any of the videos. We've got our audio available of just about all the videos that we post on YouTube. The audio is available at Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. And interesting to note that I went on iTunes today for one of the very few times I jump on iTunes for something completely unrelated and thought, well, let's just make sure my podcast is still, my audio version podcast is still available on iTunes. So I pulled it up and I played a couple podcasts in just the beginning of the podcast, and I heard advertisements from Napa and Progressive and Lowe's, and thought, these iTunes people at Apple, they're making money off me. Where am I getting some of this? So I don't know where that came from, but we'll need to possibly track that down. All right, I am jumping on the live chat to see what you guys have. We don't have too many people on the live chat right now, just about 11 people. And I know that you guys were not anticipating, again, an AFC championship game post game. Patriots win over the Chiefs 37-31. Of course, they did not have to kick the PAT. And Rams over the Saints. I also was slightly rooting for the Saints. Again, not emotionally invested, but I like Drew Brees. thought that they should have won the game. And of course, there was the awful pass interference call in that game. So the officials did not necessarily have another stellar day in the NFL. Maybe they've moved Pac-12 officiating. Maybe they've moved and they've been mimicking their techniques in the Pac-12 in the NFL. Maybe that's what's happened here. So we talk college football here, 24/7, 365, the voice of college football. So please like, comment, and also subscribe to our channel if you love college football. We do not talk NFL most of the time, but we will right now. And who knows, maybe down the road at some point we will have the number of platforms that we need to talk NFL. Certainly thought about it. All right. Am I taking any calls, Deep Barrett? I could take some calls, 860-325-3687. I'll put the number in the live chat. Deep Barrett's on the line. We got MCD Sports 4. What's up, Mark? Good to see MCD Sports 4. Also, Lucas Abner, good to see you as well. I believe this is the first time I've seen your handle listed here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Hopefully you've subscribed. And if you're catching us for the first time, you don't need to subscribe. Just check out the video, see if you like what we do. All right, yippee, it's the Patriots again. It's not good for the league anymore. NFL refs suck. Lucas, Saints got screwed over. Caleb Tyharina. I hope I got that right. My team, the Patriots, won. Congratulations, Caleb. So the rest of us having fatigue, Patriots fatigue, has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your team. You're not doing anything wrong. Maybe they did cheat a few times in their past, but as far as we know right now, the Patriots not currently doing anything wrong. As I take a call from most likely Deep Barrett, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Deep. How's it going?
Hey, Deep. What's going on, man?
Barrett. Not much, man. It was a wild day of football.
It was.
I just wanted to kind of hear. I mean, I don't want to say that I'm like too disappointed, but I'm pretty disappointed, especially with that last pass interference call. That really, oh man. I mean, I'm not that much of a Saints fan, but man, that stings. So I just wanted to hear what your thoughts are on, I guess, replay reviews for referee calls. I know that's not a rule, but I think that should be a rule, especially when, something like that could cost a team its entire season. And, I mean, looking at the second game too, there are quite a few calls that could have gone either way. So it's, hear your perspective on that.
It's an interesting point you bring up, Deep, because if we are going to check officials on boundary calls, situations in regards to a catch or no catch, or where the ball should be placed, those are obviously situations in which we are taking technology and backing up the officials to say, we have your backs, we're checking you to make sure that you spotted the ball correctly, that you ruled catch or no catch correctly, that you got the out of bounds play correctly in terms of whether the feet were down and whether it was a catch. So this would be, my initial reaction was, no, we don't want to go there. But hey, if an official in the booth or a group of officials can look at a play 18 different times from 12 different angles and say, you know what, that is clearly pass interference, then maybe we go that route. I would hate to stop the game even more. There would have to be tight restrictions, I think, and limitations placed on those type of reviews. But I tend to agree based on what we've seen today and seen on other Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, and the harsh part is that if that call was called, then essentially the Saints won the game. They would have taken a knee 3 different times to put the clock down to 4 seconds, and then, just kick a chip shot field goal right there. And, 4 seconds is a huge differential in time in comparison to, I think it was like a minute something for the opposition to kind of come back and score. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how fans kind of feel about the NFL now. I mean, I think a lot of people did have a lot of suspicion around, whether games are rigged or that some of these games are staged slightly, or, you know, I mean, I personally don't. I personally believe that purely merit gets displayed on the field, but I don't know, man. I mean, this was a wild kind of weekend, to say the least. So yeah, I mean, the other thing is that, you know, it's one more game, and I think the Patriots are pretty much a sealed dynasty now. So I wanted to kind of see what you have to say on the Pats as well, winning.
Well, I think that they were a dynasty a long time ago, and some people have a viewpoint or definition of dynasty is that you have to win the championship every year. So therefore the Steelers, when they won 2 straight and then came back and won 2 straight, or when the Patriots, let's see, their best run was what, 2 straight. They've won 2 straight a couple different times, that those are dynasties, but not the entirety of the run. But to me, the entirety of the run's a dynasty. They didn't win a Super Bowl for about a 10-year stretch from 04 to 14, but of course they were still participating in championship games on a regular basis, and they lost the 2 games to the Giants in there. So the entire runs for consistent winning and participating in championship level play year after year after year after year.
Argument.
So that's a great call on your part in regards to making a distinction here, because I make a distinction. So I think you could be the greatest quarterback of all time and not necessarily be the most accomplished. Most likely those two overlap, but he is definitely the most accomplished quarterback of all time. He's taken his team to the most championships, Super Bowl wins, Super Bowl appearances. The regular season stats are comparable to the greatest of all time, Dan Marino, Drew Brees, etc., Peyton Manning. So he's the most accomplished quarterback. I don't even think at this point now that there's an argument there. Is he the greatest to ever step on the field and play? I don't believe he's quite that guy.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, people say that he has a few years left, and if you look at his body, his diet, his regimen, I mean, I think he could play till he's 44 or at least 43. I don't know how many years are left on his contract, but I'm pretty confident that this is not the last we're going to see of Tom Brady.
It doesn't seem like it.
I could be wrong. I mean, he could win the Super Bowl and decide that, you know, I want to end on this winning note. And to be honest, I mean, I thought Drew Brees would do that this year. And, you know, I was ready to call Brees the GOAT after, you know, the second Super Bowl win, particularly ending it on a high note. But, you know, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think there's a big distinction between most distinguished and obviously most, I guess, the greatest statistical player of all time.
And I'm not even talking about statistically. I think Aaron Rodgers might be the most gifted player I've ever seen at the quarterback position, maybe before this kid Mahomes. I'll have to see him do it for a few more years. But I think people just really place this thing on the quarterback's shoulders. And yes, they have a lot to do with it. They are the most important single player on the field. I do believe that an offensive line is more important than a quarterback as a 5-person unit than a quarterback. Tom Brady, if he would have seen the pressure today that Drew Brees saw, I don't know that he's holding the trophy right now. He threw an interception that would have ended the game. I think there's certainly bounces the ball and there's luck. And if Dee Ford doesn't line up 3 further inches downfield, Tom Brady threw the game-losing interception in the AFC Championship game. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and you know, the funny part is, since you mentioned a lot of these kids, right? I mean, I know they're not kids anymore because I guess they're in the NFL, but, you know, since you're a college football host and you talk a lot about college football, I mean, it's very hard to predict someone's success, I guess, based on even college stats and translate that into the NFL. And surprisingly, a lot of these guys who we consider the GOAT, or even conversations in the GOAT, right? Like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, not all of them, but a few of them. I mean, I know that Peyton Manning had a good career in Tennessee, but, you know, a lot of these guys don't have the greatest college career. And a lot of these guys kind of are under the radar in college. We don't really hear about them, or we don't really hear that they're that great in college, if you know what I mean.
Well,
like Jared Goff, for example, he went to Cal. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, no disrespect to Cal, but they're a terrible football team.
Well, it depends how you follow college football. If you follow just the big games and the big teams, then exactly. You're right. I don't remember.
The odds of you getting drafted are also much higher if you're on a good team. Like, I mean, you know, I'm not saying it's the be all end all, right? But if you're on a 6-16 versus an Alabama or a Clemson, the odds of you getting drafted are much higher if you went to a top program as opposed to.
To your point, I don't remember much, if anything, about Aaron Rodgers' career at Cal. He didn't play in significant games, national games that people were watching. And I think his teams were decent when he was there, but they weren't great. They didn't contend for conference championships. Jared Goff had a season when he was 1-11 at Cal. The other guys that you brought up, those guys were all either really good or great in college football players, though. Drew Brees is an all-time Big Ten great. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever. When I watched Drew Brees at Purdue, I thought, oh, this guy's phenomenal. He's the best college quarterback I've ever seen. I don't know that he'll be able to do this in the NFL. Tom Brady's career was a bit spotty early, but he did lead Michigan his senior season to the Orange Bowl win over Alabama and a top 10 finish. Actually, his last 2 years, he had bowl victories and led really good Michigan teams. And Patrick Mahomes didn't lead good Texas Tech teams, but he put up a zillion yards and statistics and threw like 45 touchdowns his final season.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that Drew Brees is going to be back for another year, and I think that's pretty accurate to believe. I mean, a lot of people are already saying that he's pretty disappointed in this year's run. I mean, obviously he had a great year, his team had a great year, but I guess that's not how you want the last chapter to end, particularly if you're Drew Brees. I know it's a little bit too early to say, you know, what's going to happen next year for the Saints, but I mean, they do get a lot of their team is going to be returning next year, and I mean, you know, the pieces, the main pieces are still going to be intact. They're still going to have Alvin Kamara. They're still going to have Drew Brees. They're still going to have Mark Ingram. So that's basically your three biggest offensive players who are still returning. And then of course you got to work around how many defensive starters you're going to get back and how many, you know, offensive people you're going to get back. Maybe you're going to get better players or worse players. I mean, you know, a lot of things can happen in the off season, and obviously the NFL off season is very different. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints make another run at it next year and actually make it pretty deep, maybe even win. But I don't want to jump the gun. As far as this year, though, I mean, I think that this is definitely the chance of the one and only super dynasty. I mean, obviously you mentioned that, you know, there's already a dynasty with the Pats, but this would literally cement a super dynasty, like something that has never been accomplished. I mean, in all of sport, maybe, right? I mean, you look at how many the Pats have already won with the same QB. I mean, I was like, when I remember the first.
Well, D. Barrett, how far are you going back with this? I can give you all sorts of teams that have done what the Patriots have done.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not that old.
Okay, if you look at the look at the New York Yankees history. Look at the New York Yankees history in the 20s and 30s. They went to the World Series like 8 out of every 10 years and won the World Series. During the 50s and 60s, they did the same thing up until 1964. The New York Yankees, if you go from like Ruth, like 1920 or 21 to 64, for over 40 years, they went to over 80% of the World Series for the American League. They just lived at the World Series. So that would be one. The Boston Celtics would be another, winning 11 NBA titles in 13 years. Okay, the Patriots aren't doing that.
Yes.
So
but that's not football though.
Okay, you said sports, so I took it other sports.
Yes, I did say all of sports. You got me there.
Okay, keep going. Just keeping you honest. You know, I'm just gonna keep you honest here.
Yeah,
keep going.
I mean, the point I wanted to make here, right, is that like when I first got into the sport of football, right, I think it was like 2002, 2003. It was one of those years that the Pats won their first Super Bowl, and that was like the first time I was exposed to the game as a kid. Now, obviously, I didn't really have any other affiliation. Like, I didn't have my parents didn't go to any like big name American college that had a sports team, so I didn't really follow college sports. Like the first I guess the first team that I ever got exposed to with the game of American football was the Pats, right? And that was probably like in second grade at the time, and now I'm 25, right? So to see the same quarterback and the same head coach,
sure,
with the same team for all of those years. I mean, that's I don't know if there's a word called super dynasty or I don't know, kingdom or whatever the word you want to use, but that just never. I mean, I've never seen that. It's going to be hard for anyone in the NFL, at least, to get close to that or make a run at it. Whenever these two end up, I'm pretty sure Belichick could coach a few more years after Brady retires, but I don't know if the Pats will ever be as good as what they are without Tom Brady. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Kind of hear what you think of the future.
I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. I would be the last person to limit Tom Brady's abilities based on what he's been able to accomplish to this point. He's what, 40?
41, yeah.
Yeah, 41. So logical thinking would be that he shouldn't have been able to play this well this long anyway. So now that he's made it to 41 and playing this well, and I think he's one of the 2 to 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL, something in that range. And with the money on the line, he plays as well as anyone. Again, I will point out that he did throw an interception that would have lost the AFC Championship game, so he's not perfect. And I would love to go through a dissertation of how this Patriots run's been helped out by a few other factors. They've been aided by, and it's been no fault of their own or blame or anything that they've done wrong, but they've been aided in a few different ways during this 17 years. One would be the division that they play in is a joke. They've played in the worst division in the NFL for 17 years. So if you put them in any other division in the NFL, they would not have had quite this much success. Would they have had success?
Do you have any favorites?
Absolutely.
For this upcoming game?
Pardon me?
Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to win between the Rams and the Patriots?
I have no idea. It isn't really.
You don't want to make a preview on that or something?
I would, if somebody held a gun to my head right now, I'd say the Patriots are going to win, but I think it's a pretty.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. I think the Pats are going to be the favorite, at least by Vegas line. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's the last football game of the entire season, I guess. Obviously college ended a few years. Sorry, not a few years ago, a few weeks ago. It feels like years because we're just really passionate fans, right?
That's right.
But it's gonna be hard to see no football for another 6 months, maybe preseason.
Yeah.
But it's a long way.
All right.
Speaking of which, last question.
Yep.
Then I'll let you take other callers. Last question is: do you follow any other sports not as hardcore, but something to keep you occupied?
I've always been a big baseball fan my whole life.
So
that would be it.
But that doesn't even start for another month. But yeah, so basically it's just baseball, right?
Yeah. Like I could speak to the NBA. If you wanted to talk NBA history, I would be able to talk big players, teams, what's happened. I watched it a lot in the 90s and early 2000s, but I've been bored by it for about the last 15 years. So I haven't really watched the NBA, but then I had have a son who is crazy about the NBA. And so I've been drawn into it a little bit the last few years and have watched the playoffs quite a bit the last few years. And I used to love college basketball, but I pretty much checked out on that about 10 years ago too.
So you're basically not going to be posting much about other sports, right?
No, this is a college football channel, and I like to keep it that way. This is just me reacting to watching the NFL, and I love the NFL, and I've mentioned that many times, but I'm kind of an all or nothing guy in regards to I would not want to start to cover the NFL and talk about the NFL unless I could do it right and really cover it.
Yeah.
And that's impossible. I can't even.
There's a lot of people already doing that.
Yeah.
Too.
And I can't even cover college football the way I want to.
Yeah, there's too many pieces moving, but I do appreciate taking the call more.
Thanks, Deep Barrett.
Lovely rest of the evening.
Yeah, you as well, man. Have a good one. It's Deep Barrett who comments frequently to the show. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So I wanted to speak to a comment that was made by Nick Navarro. So, Nick, you're all over it here. So I made mention that I just cannot really remember Aaron Rodgers in college. I remember him being this stud quarterback at Cal and thinking about him more as a project for the NFL. And when I say project, I don't mean it that way. Projection toward an NFL career, not like, wow, is he going to win the Heisman? Is he going to lead Cal to the Pac-12 championship? Okay. Nick mentions here that Cal made it to number 2 in the country. And so this was in 2004. Let's go to 2004. And Cal that year, and I do not remember this, and I pride myself in remembering everything, but I, of course, don't. Of course, USC was the class of the Pac-12 at that point, and the class of the country. They won the national championship over Oklahoma, 55-19 at the Orange Bowl. USC wins the Pac-12. They handed Cal its only Pac-12 loss that year, 23-17, at USC. The game played at USC. Number 1 USC beats number 7 Cal, 23-17. Cal also lost a Holiday Bowl game against Texas Tech, 45-31. So Aaron Rodgers led Cal to a 10-1 regular season and number 4 finish. Why they only played in the Holiday Bowl, I don't recall what the politics were there, but second place team in the Pac-12, number 4 in the country, playing at the Holiday Bowl at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego against Texas Tech, and they were upset 45-31. So that was the Cal team under Aaron Rodgers in 2004. We go back to 2003. Aaron Rodgers led Cal to an 8-6 season, 5-3 season in the Pac-12, and they beat Virginia Tech in the Insight Bowl 52-49. And Aaron Rodgers actually took over the team in the 5th game of the season against Illinois. All right, so Aaron Rodgers, again, about a year and a half of play at Cal and taking Cal in his senior season to a 10-2 season and a top 10 finish in the nation. Number 9, according to the AP. Good call by Nick right there. Thank you so much for keeping us honest. So I don't mind people correcting me. Don't mind. I can't remember everything. And again, if you watch me on a regular basis, you know that I try. I try to keep everything straight and get the facts right. All right. Anything else from you guys? We got Nick Saban on the line. Lou, you a USC fan. USC gets top 10 classes every year, but still can't make a bowl game. Loser is on the line. Deep Barrett mentions Toronto Maple Leafs as a dynasty. And again, the Patriots dynasty in the NFL has been something that we have not seen to this degree for this length of time. So think about it. So this is 01 through 18. So that's 18 seasons going to 9 Super Bowls. So half of the Super Bowls the Patriots make for the AFC. 9 of 18, they have won 5, may win a 6th. And they've been to the playoffs every year, excluding the year that Tom Brady was hurt, the first game of the season. They still went 11-5 that year. They missed in 02 as well. So they've missed the playoffs twice in 18 years. That's 16 out of 18. And they've made 13 AFC championships in 18 years. Tom Landry's Dallas Cowboys made 13 championship games in 20. Let's see, from 1966 through 83. That's an 18-year run as well. They made 12 championship games in 18 years, but they didn't win the number of Super Bowls that the Patriots did. But the Cowboys during that time under Tom Landry, and I would argue him as the greatest coach of all time for reasons other than just the win-loss and the championship totals, made 12 championship games in 18 years, won 2 Super Bowls out of 5, was ripped off a couple times, and that's another story. The Green Bay Packers, of course, during a 10-year span, Vince Lombardi, 1960 through actually 68. So that's a 9-year run. They won 5 championships in 9 years. The Patriots have won 5 in 17 years. So you could say that the Packers were more successful in a more condensed period of time, winning 5 Super Bowls, 5 NFL championships. First 3 were NFL championships. The last 2 were Super Bowls in 9 years. The Cleveland Browns moving from the All-American Conference to the NFL. I'm speaking off the top of my head. I believe all my numbers are correct. Anybody out there, correct me if you want to look this up. The Cleveland Browns, in a 10-year span, played in the NFL championship or the All-America, converting to the NFL championship every year. 10 years in a row, they won 5 championships and they lost 5 championships. All right. Jamie Todd's on the line. Overtime rule needs to change. If a team scores a touchdown, the other team should have the chance to play. And Jamie, I think you make a great point here that it's one thing to hand a team a loss during the regular season that they can recover from, or decide that we're only going to play 10 minutes because we don't mind that there's a tie, because the players can't be completely just gutted and worn out and susceptible to injury more so than they already are. But this is to play for the Super Bowl. So maybe you have different overtime rules for the postseason. For a team not to get their hands on the ball, that's not right. They've improved the overtime rules from what it used to be, because the Patriots would have stopped playing about 3, 4, 5 plays sooner and kicked a field goal to win the game. So it's better than sudden death, but it still becomes sudden death when you give the team the opportunity to take the ball first, score a touchdown, end the game, and the Chiefs never touch the ball. That's not fair. It's not fair. It's not right. Is anyone surprised by how good Tony Romo is as a broadcaster? That comes from Tom PSU. So, Tom, my analysis of Tony Romo is actually that he's getting worse. And we would love to have Tony on the show sometime, so maybe I shouldn't continue. I was surprised the first couple of times I heard him that he was as good as he was coming out of the gate, right off the football field into the booth. I think he's gotten a little lazy and a little too loose. It's just, he's just all over the place. And some of the things he needs to sometimes stop talking, calm down and stop talking, because he states he's great at diagnosing the plays. He's an NFL quarterback and was for over a decade. So he's great at diagnosing the plays. Sometimes he just runs off at the mouth and talks about a bunch of stuff and gives us obvious statements. So many obvious statements. This is a really big play. This could be for the game. Yeah, we know it's for the game. It's 4th and 10. There's 3 seconds left. It's obvious. I just heard so much out of him tonight in that manner. I think the South is not football capital. He's better than Jason Witten and Booger. Unfortunately, I can't speak to that because of certain connections. All right. All right. Anything else in here? All right, MCD Sports 4, surfing up the Golden State Warriors is a dynasty. Yes, they are a dynasty. Not anywhere close to the greatest of all time. Again, that Yankees, if we're just talking professional sports, that Yankees dynasty, nobody's going to touch that for longevity. It's just not going to be, it's just crazy. Look up World Series from 1920 to about 1964. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's MCD Sports 4.
Hey, sir. What's going on?
Hey, I have a quick question. Did you catch the last few minutes of the Saints-Rams game? Like the quarter?
So I technically watched every play of the game. I was on the phone for the last, quarter and overtime, so I wasn't really locked in. And I got to say that even that, because of the nature of the phone call, even the pass interference got by me until I was online and saw it all over the place. So what's your question?
My question is, should the NFL just fire all the NFL referees? The NFL referees are the worst referees I've ever seen. or officials ever seen. That's all sports: NHL, NBA, MLB. I mean, NFL refs are horrible. I mean, I can't because I can't just. I mean, I was even debating calling in because I was afraid I might lose it, but God.
So what's your question?
I mean,
You're asking me whether they should fire everyone?
Fire everyone.
Just fire them all. So there's guys that were sitting at home today. Fire them.
All of them are awful, Mark. All of them. The way I watch NFL, I have an AFC team and an NFC team. My NFC team is the Saints, and I mean, I had a Class A Tampa tantrum after that call. I gotta admit, I mean, they're even worse than the Pac-12 refs. I just can't. Like, I just don't know.
Well, so my defense for NFL officials is I think it's pretty easy to argue that they do have the most difficult sport to officiate. Those 22 guys are just moving so fast and so many different. Every other sport has more, in terms of bodies moving a certain direction at once, they have more of a regulated flow. Guys run along a base path in baseball. You know, it's more structured. NBA players are all set up in a half court, and then when they're moving, they're all flowing down at the same pace, basically down this court together. Versus the NFL, guys are flying all over in all sorts of directions at the same time. I think it's the most difficult sport to officiate, so you got to understand that.
Yeah, I do, but I mean, I know, like, for instance, there's no way you can't miss that pass interference call. There's just
absolutely,
no way.
Absolutely.
Like, I was wearing a Saints hat during the game, and I just threw it on the ground and had a Class A Tampa tantrum over that. I mean, and I know the NFL this year, you brought it up earlier in the Patriots game. And by the way, I thought the Patriots-Chiefs game, I thought that game was officiated better out of the two. But in the fourth quarter with the roughing the passer, they were told to call it that way if any of the defenders hit the quarterback in the head, neck area, whatever. Right? I think personally, I think that's a bunch of nonsense. Like, to me, that's not roughing the passer. To me, that's another bad call. But that's just how they got told to call it. So, I mean, the NFL is getting softer by the minute. I just don't get it. Like, every play was to me every play there was holding on the play, and it was in the Patriots game. It was holding on every play, and it was 50-50 if they were going to call it or not. So I don't. I mean, I just don't understand these NFL refs at times. Like, if I was Rodgers, I would seriously consider firing all the refs. But I hate Rodgers Goodell, so he probably won't do it.
So if you would call NFL games based on the rule book, I think there's a bit of an issue there, because as you hear the statement made during college and NFL season that you could call holding along the offensive line every play. You could call pass interference a lot more than you do. So there's just a judgment there as to, is this really affecting play? And there's a number of things that they need to look at, and it's a difficult job, but it's got to get better. And I don't know how to do that. And they have made the rules such that the defense can't play. I could not believe, well, this was the officials. This was not the rule book. This was the official making a horrible call on the Patriots drive that took the lead right at the end of the game that made it 31-28 when Chris Jones reached over the offensive lineman because he couldn't get through him, and he had his hand on Tom Brady's shoulder. That's all he had, on his shoulder pad. And they called him for roughing the passer, and the ball wasn't even released yet. I have no idea what they were seeing there. And the defense given by one of the broadcasters was he was blocked and he couldn't see. Well, if he couldn't see, if the official couldn't see, then he shouldn't be throwing a flag. That was just a huge phantom flag that aided that Patriots touchdown drive that sent it to overtime.
Yeah. One thing I want to say, I'm just looking at the chat. I rarely blame the refs. Like, I don't believe in blaming the refs for losses. But that Saints game, I blame the refs on that. Like, I thought the refs were like that one call. Like, to me, all it comes down to just call the obvious calls. Like, for instance, that pass interference in that Saints game. Just call the obvious stuff, and I'll be fine. But I mean, I just lost it after that. No pass interference. I mean, but I would just fire all the refs. But
all right, MCD4, we've got a few other calls coming in here I'd like to grab. So you have a good night.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you go.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Let me make sure we got you. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Yeah, who's on the line?
Tigers. How you doing, Mark?
I don't think the Tigers were playing tonight. Were they? Detroit, they don't go to spring training here until February.
Yeah, but go close the Tigers.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, how you doing, Mark?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Man, I hate that I missed some great games today. I was out here working.
You're working all the time. You're just a working fool.
Oh, yeah. I didn't take off with my teams that I'm playing. So, so that's the only time I take off. But I will listen to your show. I totally agree with you about the quarterbacks. I think they get too much credit and too much of the blame when their teams win or lose. I'm a Steelers fan, so the Patriots have stuck in my heart a lot of times. But if you go back to the first 3 Super Bowls that Brady, the Patriots won, a lot of that was their defense was just so good. If I'm not mistaken, I know you're going to look it up, but I think the first 3 Super Bowls, Tom Brady never threw for over 3,000 yards in that year.
DeAndre, do you remember who you're talking to here? Do you really think I need to look that up?
Yeah, I did say that you were going to go look it up to see if I was correct.
Do you think I need to look it up? Do you think I need to look that up?
I don't know. Do you?
I know I know. I used to know like every Super Bowl stat in the book, but my memory's failing me, and I don't keep up with it quite as well. I know he went 16 for 27 for $145 against the Rams. I know the Panthers game.
No. I'm talking about for the season. Did he throw for over 3,000 yards?
Oh, 3,000 yards. I thought you said 300 yards in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I got you. He didn't in 01. There's no question about that. After that, I'll look it up right now.
Yeah.
You keep going.
Yeah, 2001 was 2,843. The 02 was 3,764. And the 2004 was 3,692.
Okay.
But my point is, they always had some great defenses. I think they were all top 5 when they won the Super Bowl. Tom Brady's a great quarterback. I ain't gonna sit up here and lie and hate on somebody.
Absolutely.
Who's that great? Yeah, he's a great quarterback. One of my friends, he's a Georgia Bulldog fan, and the first thing he says to me, he said, we got 2 Georgia Bulldogs in the championship game. Who in there for Clemson outside of Dwayne Allen? I said, but man, how many championships did they win? Who they had all that talent? so he goes back and forth with me and about Georgia and Clemson all the time.
So
I used to tell him that Georgia was a big rivalry in Clemson in the 80s.
So you didn't see the either championship game? None of it?
No, I listened to it on the radio.
Okay.
And I'm sad that I missed it. They both sounded great games, man.
So with the Chiefs Patriots game, you need to know this because again, as you know, we know what the score was and we know the results, but when we get on here, on the Voice of College Football, we try to break it down and put it into context and point out some things that maybe make people view it a little bit differently. So consider that on the drive that the Patriots scored to take the lead with about 20 some seconds left in the game, Brady threw an interception that was called back because of an offside penalty. So he could have thrown the offside penalty had no impact on the play and did not affect him throwing an interception. He threw an interception that would have ended the game and sent Kansas City to the Super Bowl.
Right. And like I said, I keep trying to tell people I'm still a fan. He done got us a couple of times, so I can understand. I can understand where everybody's coming from.
Oh yeah.
Tom Brady did it to us a couple of times over the years, man. And the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, the first year that Tom Brady and I think Bledsoe had to come in and relieve Tom Brady, and they had beat Pittsburgh. The next year they played in the opening season, and that's when you first started seeing people spread people out instead of always trying to run the ball, because New England didn't do nothing on Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. I think they had a punt return for a touchdown.
Yeah, Troy Brown.
Yeah, and the next year, that was the first time you started seeing people say, "Hey, we ain't gonna try to," people say they base 3-4 or 4-3. We're gonna spread them out and get a running back on a linebacker and throw the ball down the field.
So, the St. Louis Rams were doing that.
What?
The St. Louis Rams were doing that. Yeah, with Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce, 4 wide receiver sets, Ricky Prohl, Zahir Akeem. Yeah, that were there. Yeah. Marshall Faulk in the backfield, throwing him about 90 passes a year. But that was just exactly. You're right. The beginning of the era of doing that. That we were just starting to see that.
Yes. So
All right, DeAndre.
Hey, Mark.
Yep.
2 more questions before you go.
Sure.
Those donations that we do, that helps your channel?
Absolutely, it helps my channel. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if you.
I want to make sure that it helps your channel. And sometimes I donate. I'm like, well, let me make sure with Mark, and before I can start increasing. My second question is, and I know this is off the NFL subject, but can you please tell me what the difference is between Trevor Lawrence and Fields coming out of college, out of high school? Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, the difference? Yeah, what was the difference? Why was one ranked 1 and the other one ranked 2, depending on the publication? I guess what I'm kind of asked, how does ESPN come up with their publication for both of them? Why was Fields ranked higher than Trevor Lawrence? I would think that Fields was ranked higher because he's got more dynamic playmaking ability with his legs. He's more mobile. Oh, okay. That might have been the difference, I would think. So yeah, that's all. That's all I was asking. That's all. But man, I keep donating to the channel. Keep on putting out great work. I'm kind of sad that you're gonna be doing the national championships no more. I was hoping you get down to at least 84. We'll see. I love doing them. I love doing them, but nobody's watching them. So the one thing I'm going to ask you before you get off the line, because I forgot to mention this. So are you going to be around? Let's see. This would be about 7 o'clock tomorrow night, maybe 6 o'clock. I'm going to do this. I was going to do a live stream tomorrow at 6 about the channel. Oh yeah. Are you going to be able to catch that one? Would love to have you around. Of course. All right, DeAndre. Hey, man, you do a great job. I know I give you a hard time on Miami and Ohio State. I just blame a lot of times. But you have a great day, Mark. I appreciate it, DeAndre. You have a good night. All right. Bye-bye. So DeAndre, some of the comments he made reminded me that I am planning on doing a live stream on Monday at 6 o'clock Eastern time. 6 o'clock Eastern time. We're just going to talk about the channel. So
if you guys come on here and you want to talk on the live chat about college football, and I certainly can't stop that, but I would expect and hope that you would just listen this one time. I'm just going to talk about the channel. And if you don't want to hear about the channel and the vision and the thoughts and the plans and all that, then please don't join tomorrow's live stream. But I'm going to send out the notification to all 7,600 of you tomorrow for a live stream at 6 o'clock Eastern time. Also, I'm going to start my conference rankings. I have done all the metrics and math and results and grinded through all the seedings of all the conferences. And what we're going to start with tomorrow is I'm going to start releasing videos where I'm going to match up two conferences. Let's say it's going to be Pac-12, Big 12, and it's going to have every team seeded. So in the Big 12, Oklahoma, Texas, Iowa State would be number 3, West Virginia 4, and the seedings is just based on the standings. And we are going to match them up. So Oklahoma would be playing Washington. And then instead of deciding, okay, who would win this game if they played once? Well, obviously, that's a very difficult call if they only played once. You know, take Michigan against Florida. Who wins that game? Well, they played. That's probably a bad example. Michigan and Texas. There you go. Who wins that game? I don't know who wins that game if they play once, but if they play 10 times, then you can make a distinction whether you think these teams are really close. It's 5-5 or 6-4 versus no, this team's much better. They win 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. And we are going to, and there is nothing scientific about this part of it. It's just me making my decision and my approximation on who would win these games, these 10-game series between these two conferences. And then I'm going to ask you to do the same. Then we're going to take those results, and that's all just part of fun. But then I have broken down and reviewed all the results of all the Power 5 games this season, all the Power 5 non-conference games. And I can tell you who won and which seed beat which seed. I've adjusted the seeds to make it even between the 3 14-team leagues and the 112 and the 110-team league. And I do this each and every offseason if you have yet to catch it. But we're going to start that series on Monday. But we're going to be back here Monday at 6 Eastern to talk about this channel, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I appreciate everyone who has joined the live chat. Remember that every time that we do a live stream, that the super chat is open for you to contribute to the channel. I appreciate anything that you could give us there. So thank you so much. If you guys have any specific questions or comments for me, please don't leave them in the live chat. I'll probably miss them. Just leave them on any of the videos. Make your comments right there to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Lou in particular, I have seen more comments out of you than I ever have before, so it was great to see you. And everyone else, Deep Barrett for calling. Also, we've got DeAndre, of course, making his phone call. That was good to see. Nick Saban's on the line as well. All you guys. Nick, for one of the few times that I've seen you on here, that's great to see you as well. Not going to comment necessarily on other media members. That may not necessarily be a good career move on my part, but I appreciate the question. We will see all of you back here at 6 o'clock Eastern time on Monday. Again, only if you want to discuss and hear about the channel right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I'm going to check out the live chat, and then we will say goodbye. Next time, boys. We'll see you.